Good afternoon for Telesur. I'm Regan Devines in Caracas, Venezuela. Thank you so much for being here with us. Mexico's Foreign Minister Claudia Ruiz Massieu is in Cairo seeking answers from Egyptian authorities after security forces in that country mistakenly killed 8 Mexican tourists. Ruiz Massieu traveled there with 7 relatives of some of the victims, along with Mexican doctors and forensic police. At least 2 Mexicans are confirmed dead by the airstrike and 6 wounded. There are 6 others which the government had been unclear of. Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto has demanded an exhaustive investigation from Egyptian authorities, which vowed to form an investigative committee headed by the Prime Minister. Journalists in Honduras are denouncing an increase on repression against them. Earlier in September, journalist Donna Montoya was attacked by at least 6 policemen who tried to take her camera while she was recording the repression against a demonstration in the city of El Progreso. Since then, 6 more journalists have come under fire by the military and police. Gerardo Torres filed this report.
Doña Montoya is an independent journalist that has reporting on the demonstrations calling for the resignation of President Juan Hernández for alleged links to corruption. She has presented a complaint against the National Police for aggressions that she suffered on September 1st.
While I was recording, a police officer was grabbing a protester by his t-shirt, and a very tall officer came directly to me. He took my camera and broke it. After that, another police officer tried to take it away, and in that struggle, while I was trying to protect my equipment, other officers pushed me. They threw me to the ground. I didn't know what was happening. I could only understand pain and the weight of boots on my chest and face.
Since the attack against Montoya, 6 other journalists have suffered attacks while covering different demonstrations. For the Committee for the Freedom of Speech, this is a new stage in the attack against the press.
This pattern has increased in 2015, because even though, since 2009, there have been attacks against the press, we have never seen a police officer point their gun at a journalist like what happened in March this year in the city of Catacamas, or that a group of officers attack a female journalist while she was on the floor and they kicked her head.
The attacks have occurred across the whole country in what looks like a disturbing trend of violence against journalists in all of Honduras. Gerardo Torres, Telesur, Central America.
Brazil has announced the launch of an austerity plan in order to ride out its current economic crisis. The plan aims to cover Brazil's primary deficit of 0.5% of the GDP in 2016 to instead achieve a surplus of 0.7%. The adjustment plan seeks to cut near $17 billion on state spendings, but not on social services. The plan hopes to delay the wage adjustment and hirings in the public sector, remove 10 of the 39 ministries, reduce government employments, and recover an old financial transactions tax. Standard & Poor's downgraded Brazil's credit rating to junk last week after the country presented its first ever deficit budget for 2016. Mexico presented the UN with a report on measures they are taking to protect human rights. This includes systemic issues such as enforced disappearances and torture, a practice that experts and activists say is widespread in Mexico. Our correspondent Clayton Khan filed this report.
Since 2013, the life of Ana has been upside down. Her husband David has been detained without charge or sentence, accused of kidnapping. She says he was forced to sign a false confession produced by torture.
He had a bruise on his left side, eye, cheek, he had blood on his wrist, and he had a vest which made it hard to see the beatings on his body. When I tried to pull up his shirt, they didn't let me.
David was a political advisor to lawmakers and the legislature, with no criminal history. His lawyer affirms that although there is no evidence of his guilt, often law enforcement agents fabricate it to appease to superiors that may have a political agenda.
Police agents act under a lot of pressure. They act so as to produce results for their superiors, and in this case, of some presumed victims that had political connections because of their families. This generates a pressure on the police to provide results, and they do it, like Ana said, through an investigation method, which is torture.
Although Mexico signed on to the so-called Istanbul Protocol, which outlines international standards in documenting and punishing torture, activists affirm that since the country launched its so-called war on drugs in 2006, state-implemented torture has increased with impunity.
Torture has not ended. In fact, it has become worse. And it is not a legal or technical problem, but rather a grave problem because public servants hide it.
Yet international organizations such as the United Nations affirm that the use of torture goes beyond isolated cases to being widespread and systematic.
There is a permanent presence of mistreatment when one is arrested, and when I say torture is generalized, I meant to refer specifically to the denouncements that I have received, which practically point to all agencies that make arrests in this country.
With the fallout of the forced disappearance of the 43 Ayotzinapa students, Mexican authorities are facing sharp pressure to implement new mechanisms to prevent and sanction the application of torture and investigations. Clayton Cantelesur, Mexico City.
Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro vowed to fight to stabilize global oil prices. He declared this during an event in Caracas commemorating 55 years since the creation of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. During the event, Maduro explained how oil price instability is affecting the global economy and proposed the creation of a new alliance between OPEC members and non-member oil-producing nations.
The time has come to establish mechanisms that have been proven efficient and successful in the 55 years of OPEP's history. These shall be shared with infinite patience and wisdom with the oil-producing non-PEP countries, with who we've been working the last few months.
We now visit Peru, where a case of drug trafficking is further staining the reputation of one of the country's oldest political parties. Our correspondent Ryan Mora is in Lima, and he filed this.
After 5 months of persecution, Peruvian fugitive Gerald Oropesa, who has been accused of drug trafficking, was captured in Ecuador and brought back on Monday. He was allegedly in charge of smuggling containers of cocaine from Peru to Europe, and his case caught national attention after his luxury Porsche was attacked with a grenade back in April.
I take this opportunity, this space, to thank our brothers from the Ecuadorian police that have made this capture possible. We have been working for a while with them, and in many opportunities, the issues of drug and organized crime.
Oropesa's case is also politically relevant, since it adds to a series of cases of corruption for which the APRA party of former President Alan Garcia is under investigation by a special commission of Congress. Oropesa's father was a leader of APRA until he was murdered under unresolved circumstances earlier this year, and together with his son, they had an unusually profitable cleaning company that benefited from state contracts.
This case would account for facts that the Special Commission was not able to investigate, but that show that there are circumstances and links that have favored businesses that are not made adequately clear, and they do indicate there are irregular contracts benefiting companies of members of the APRA party.
Rivera believes that the fact that Oropesa justified his lavish expenses through profits of his cleaning company might mean that he was also using the company to launder drug money. It is expected that his declarations in the next few days will further help cases of corruption against leaders of APRA and affect the elections early next year. Rael Mora, Telesur, Peru.
And Panamanian authorities have seized more than 3 tons of cocaine and more than $500,000 in 7 separate operations in less than a week. 15 people have been arrested. In the first operation, police seized 845 kilos of cocaine hidden in 34 plastic sacks. In another bust, police found 300 cocaine packages buried 3 meters into the ground inside a septic tank. Other operations near Panama City netted close to 1,000 packs of the drug. Central America and Mexico are the main transit points for South American cocaine destined for U.S. markets. Coffee production has declined in Bolivia. However, some farmers are hoping to turn this around. Here is Dimitri O'Donnell with more.
The distinctive aroma of coffee filled the air as farmers gathered to promote their products at a meeting in La Paz. They came with their beans to show the world that Bolivia is finally ready to take the production of coffee seriously. Since the late 1990s, there's been a steep decline in the industry.
We want coffee production to return to the high levels of the 1990s, of about 140,000 bags. Today, we are not even half that.
The fall-off in production left many coffee farmers with a bitter aftertaste. The market collapsed and unsustainable farming practices destroyed much of the mineral-rich soil that's needed to grow the plants.
The earth in Bolivia was tired, pretty much exhausted, so production levels have been low since the 1990s. But now we're increasing production and taking better care of the land to improve the quality and grow more beans.
After years of missed opportunities, specialty cafes like this one in La Paz are now showcasing the very best that Bolivia's coffee growers have to offer. The aim is to ship more of this high-quality coffee around the world, helping boost an industry that's been struggling to meet international demands. The owner of this cafe is doing her bit to help the farmers. Growing demand for locally sourced organic coffee has helped her business, in turn benefiting the farmers who get a fair price.
My business works with the coffee farmers to produce coffee of a good quality because we are a gourmet cafe. We are teaching them how to produce organic coffee for a fair price.
Hopes are high among producers that Bolivian coffee will stand out from the competition.
We produce naturally, organically sourced coffee, and we are confident that no one can compete with Bolivia in this sector.
The target is to increase exports from current levels of 40,000 sacks of beans a year to 360,000 by 2020. This will eventually generate an estimated $360 million for the local economy. Dimitri O'Donnell, Telesur, La Paz.
Coming up after the break, Hungary seals its borders with razor-sharp barbed wire. That and more next.
We need to understand the world we live in. We require news with critical points of view, thorough analysis, and social commitment. This information is vital to think, to understand, and to change. The world demands a new perspective. telesurtv.net/English. Wherever the news, you'll be there.
Rod stars G1 and Claudia de la Cruz are Rebel Diaz, hip-hop activists positioned within a history of political resistance through music. And you don't stop. They invite young people to express themselves about their social struggles. And you don't stop. Watch it on telesurtv.net/English. Telesur, wherever the news, you'll be there.
A virtual wall of barbs erected on the Hungarian border with Serbia now temporarily separates refugees from their goals of reaching more northern and stronger European nations. That, in addition to Hungary's new laws on illegal entrance, has left a horde of refugees stranded. Hungary officially sealed its border around midnight, leaving many refugees combing the fencing to find gaps through which they may pass. However, it seems hopeless to many at the moment. There is now a sense of uncertainty as to what their next move should be.
We have spent our whole economy on traveling, so it is impossible that we go back or stay in here.
And Hungary has declared a crisis along the border with Serbia. They said this is to defend the border, the ability and capabilities of the police.
Caused by mass migration, the Hungarian government declares a state of crisis, a crisis situation, which obviously enables police and other authorities on the ground for a special protocol. The duration is as long as it is necessary, and it is for two southern counties of the country for the moment.
Reports are that Turkish forces at Turkey's border with Greece stopped thousands of refugees and migrants attempting to enter into Greece. Refugees say they want to leave because they say there is neither life nor human rights in Turkey. Meanwhile, the European Commission expressed its disappointment at the inability of the region's leaders to settle on how 160,000 refugees should be distributed throughout the bloc.
I was expecting more support on behalf of all member states. Yes, the majority was very helpful. They contributed. We have positive results, but I was not happy to see some countries thinking rather in a national than in a European way.
A Europe welcoming Syrians is something that helps to defeat the Islamic State. A Europe rejecting Syrians, especially because if they are Muslims, is something that helps the propaganda of the Islamic State. And we need to be aware of this. And this is a very central battle in what's happening today in our world and is directly linked to our own global security in Europe.
Satirical French magazine Charlie Hebdo is crossing the limits once more to some. They recently posted cartoons of young Aylan Arkurti, the 3-year-old Syrian boy found dead on a Turkish beach. Charlie Hebdo's caption under the cartoon reads, "Welcome to the migrants, so close to the goal, promotional offer, kids menu, 2 for the price of 1. Additionally, the edition's cover page reads, "Proof that Europe is Christian. Christians walk on water. Muslim kids drown." The publication has re-inspired outrage by people who are not in agreement with the toddler's image being used for satirical purposes. Others in favor of the cartoon argue that the message is an indictment on any anti-refugee sentiment. Ahead of this weekend's snap elections in Greece, a live televised debate put former Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras head-to-head against Conservative candidate Evangelos Mermarakis. The two debated on popular issues such as Greece's $97 billion debt as well as the refugee crisis. Tsipras is asking the Greek population for a second chance to see Greece through its crisis. Mermarakis does not want the former Prime Minister back in power.
Αλλά εξέφρασε και τη μεγάλη αντίφαση. Ότι πρέπει ταυτόχρονα να βγαίνει και να λέει ότι είναι απλό.
The dilemma next Sunday is simple. Do we want the Greece of the few or of the many? Do we want a Greece that will not give vision or prospect, or a Greece that will give possibility to all Greeks so that the Greeks can prosper, live creatively, and have an optimist future? It is in your hands. Some wanted to make our effort a brief interlude. Let us not permit that. Let us win the future by ending with the past.
Είναι στο χέρι σας.
Άρα μπορείτε να το χρησιμοποιήσετε. Να τους ρωτήσουμε τότε μήπως για το ασφαλιστικό θα ήθελα να πούνε κάτι. Ωραία. Λοιπόν,
I would never want to see you become prime minister again. You are the prime minister that is leaving, that brought catastrophe to the country, that brought the biggest maleficence. We never had so many ills in such a small period of time.
To Gaza now, farmers keep being attacked by the Israeli occupation forces. More now from Noor Harazin.
In Gaza this morning, the Israeli side violated the agreed Palestinian-Israeli truce by shooting and firing towards Palestinian farmers in eastern Khan Yunis and Khuza'a district. Farmers committee said that there were no injuries reported, however, they were forced to leave their fields. So this kind of Israeli attack on farmers and Palestinian fishermen is the second only this week. At the same time, in the West Bank, escalations clashes continue between Palestinians and Israeli police and Israeli settlers for the third day in a row around the Palestinian-occupied city of East Jerusalem and inside Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Russia has announced it will continue to provide military assistance to the Syrian government. This has brought criticism from the United States, despite the North American country being the first to announce the training of the so-called Free Syrian Army under the pretext of fighting ISIS. But Russia will not back down. Hazem Abdullah explains.
Despite U.S. criticism over the Russian military aid to Syria, and the information about Russia sending a sophisticated missile system to Syria, known as SA-22. Moscow has asked Cyprus to divert flight paths as it plans to carry out naval maneuvers in the area just off Syrian beaches. These maneuvers include firing rockets, and they will take place between the 14th and the 17th of September.
Russia did not come with something new when it announced that it will send Russian experts to Syria. This relationship goes back for decades. For more than 50 years, the Syrian army has depended on Russian arms in the first place, as well as on Russian experts in the field of energy and industry. There have been contracts between the two countries for a long time, and Russian experts reside since long among the Syrian people. There is nothing new in all of this, only an American attempt to raise media concern in order to invest in these positions later.
In the same context and in the background of a meeting between the foreign ministers of Brazil and Iran in Tehran, Iran Foreign Minister Jawad Zarif confirmed his country's permanent position and its willingness to form a common front to fight terrorism and extremism. The Brazilian Foreign Minister Mauro Luis Vera also stressed the importance of the fight against terrorism, saying that his country supports all effort to fight terrorism and that they do not believe that a military solution in Syria will help to resolve this crisis. He added that political dialogue is the only way of the solution.
Mr. Zarif put this initiative earlier in his visit to Syria, that they seek to find a political solution to the crisis. There are consultations at the highest levels between leaders of the two countries on this initiative, and the Iranian initiative points out the depth of the relationship between Syria and Iran.
A political solution is the only solution in Syria, and this point has been agreed upon by Russia and Iran, and this is where they're moving towards. But this has to be in conjunction with the fight against terrorism, jointly with the Syrian army, the owner of the land.
In light of all these political movements, Syria remain waiting for an imminent solution that would bring life back to what it was before the terrorism hit their country. Hazem Abdullah, Telesur, Syria.
A Colombian chef is making traditional and indigenous recipes with a touch of art. Chef Leonor Espinosa uses a wide variety of Colombia's products that she says is more than regionalism, as she mixes all kinds of Colombian cooking. And finally this afternoon, it was a beautiful sight to witness by park officials. A new addition to Berlin's Tier Park Zoo, a baby rhino. Visitors were finally given the opportunity to view the baby Indian rhino, which was born on September 9th to his 20-year-old mother. The Indian rhino had been rendered virtually extinct in the mid-90s due to indiscriminate hunting. However, it's clear that, if you can see here, that the future holds great possibilities for the species. A name is yet to be given to the newborn. For these and other stories, please visit our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Regan Devines. We hope to see you for our major newscast this evening. Have a great afternoon.